Because think about it, man. If Sly would have died after Rocky, do you think it would have been a Sly exploitation? You know what I'm saying? If Arnold would have died after the Terminator, would there have been an Arnold exploitation? I don't think so. And here's the review. All right, y'all. So I just got done watching the clones of Bruce Lee. I think it's called the mini clones of Bruce Lee. This is a documentary that dropped, I believe, last year. So I don't know where this video is going to drop in the algorithm, but this is an exploration of the Bruceploitation era in film. And this is a time that I totally forgot about. You know what I'm saying? As much as I pride myself on knowing all the genres and subgenres of films, this one like went into the back of my rememberer. But I watched this documentary, I had to smile because yes, this was an actual thing. Yes, blaxploitation, Bruceploitation. Bruce Lee was so large, and I think people forget this, and that's why I want to make this video also to remind people how large Bruce Lee was, how iconic Bruce Lee was. You know what I mean? From the early 70s all the way through the 80s. One of my favorite movies of all time is a Bruceploitation film, and that's Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, Bruce Leroy. All right. So after Bruce died in 73, there was this huge void because Into the Dragon was just it was a phenom, you know what I'm saying? It was just it was lightning in a bottle. There was just Bruce Lee mania going on where everybody now wants to learn kung fu. People are dressing like him, you know, especially people in the hood. You know what I'm saying? You go to like many hoods in America, black people even idolize Bruce. He was just universally loved. And then he died. After his breakout film, he's no longer here. So only thing we have now is the movies that he made in Hong Kong, which was The Big Boss, which was redubbed Fist of Fury. Then you had Fist of Fury, which was redubbed The Chinese Connection, which is my personal favorite Bruce joint. And then Way of the Dragon, which was redubbed Return of the Dragon. And then, of course, The Abomination Game of Death, which everybody involved with that movie should be put in jail. No lie. Like, anybody that was involved in that film should be locked under the damn jail. So after his passing, they said, okay, there's a market here. People love this guy, but damn, okay, we need copycats now. Hence, the many actors that copied Bruce and even spelled the name. Like, I remember going to the video stores as a kid, going to the martial arts section, and I just saw endless options of Bruce Lee movies, but it was spelled Bruce Lee with an L-E, L-I, L-E-I. Then you had Bruce Lowe, and then you had Bruce Liang, okay? And they were all copycats. And even Jackie Chan did a Bruceploitation film. It was a sequel to The Fist of Fury, all right? But luckily, Jackie Chan broke out on his own. He did his own thing. He showed that, okay, I'm going to do the opposite of what Bruce did. I'm not going to be the guy that's this ultra tough guy that can beat everybody up. No, I'm going to be the one getting my ass kicked, but at the same time, give you some choreography like you've never seen before. So there was a stretch from 74 to like the late 80s where you had all these copycat Bruce Lee films. And this documentary shows like all the actors that played him or played copycats of him. And there were multiple biopics made. I thought that Dragon of Bruce Lee story was like the first one, but there were like many of them back in the day. It's crazy. And they even had one called The Clones of Bruce Lee, which was kind of what this documentary is named after, where they had different clones of Bruce, but there were different personalities of him. Like any type of parody or spoof you could think of, they did. It is crazy. And it just goes back to what Michael Jai White was saying. Michael Jai White was on Vlad TV, and he was asked, who is the biggest action star of all time, the best action icon of all time? And he said, Bruce Lee. And even as a fan, as a diehard fan, I'm like, over Arnold and Sly and, you know, Charles Bronson. Wait, there was even a Bronson Lee. Yes, there was even a version of Bruce that was based off of Charles Bronson. Okay, so he had the classic Bruce Lee look with the pajamas and stuff, and then he had the Charles Bronson mustache, and yo, it was crazy. Now, you did have, you know, a trend that was started with Sly and Arnold, where now actors need to, you know, bulk up and get muscles. You know, they did start a trend. But I mean, when you start your own subculture, right, where you're being mimicked and copied and everything from bouncing the toes to, you know, the swiping of the nose and the whoa, you know, the whole style. They was copying this nigga's style for years. And guess what? These movies were not flopping. These movies were making money. I'm talking about low budget B Bruce Lee copycats that's actually banking at the box office. And you got to think too, this is a time before VHS. This is before they started airing movies on TV. You can only see these movies on the big screen. All right. So people went out in droves to see Into the Dragon. Okay, now Into the Dragon's no longer here. Okay, damn, we need our Bruce fix. They put out all these copycats and people still went out and these movies made money. But unfortunately for the actors, that's all they could get. You know what I'm saying? So that's what this documentary was about, showing the actors and how their claim to fame was playing this copycat of this icon and how their career never did anything after that. You know, so they'll always be known as the copycat of the most iconic martial artist in the world. Only thing I wish this documentary would have did more of is explored more of the Game of Death. Like they talked about Game of Death a little bit, but that could be a whole documentary on its own. And they may be a documentary on Game of Death. I'm not sure. But that was just, okay, so to those that don't know, Game of Death was the movie that Bruce was working on before he passed. So right before he did Into the Dragon, he was in the middle of filming Game of Death. And they said, hey, you know, we want you to come out to America. And we got this American production through Warner Brothers, and we want you to be a part of it. So he actually abandoned that project, but he did shoot 30 minutes of footage. So what they did was, now fast forward 6 years later, 1979, they decided to take that footage and then build a script and a movie around there, which was the Game of Death. And there's even a scene, and this is where you know this shit's off the rails. There's a scene where you see Bruce sit down, right? And you can clearly see it's a cardboard cutout of his face. He's looking in the mirror, and there's a cardboard cutout of his face. You can clearly see that there's an actor sitting behind it. So they would do stuff like they wouldn't show his face. They would have him put on dark sunglasses, or they would show him from behind. So you never actually see the actual Bruce until the end of the movie, where the footage that he actually shot. So if you ever watch Game of Death, just know that the real Bruce Lee is only at the end of the movie, where he fights Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It was atrocious. And in poor taste, they even show footage from his funeral, right? Like, how low can you go where you actually show footage of the man's funeral? And I remember they actually showed, this is not in the movie, but I saw footage from the premiere, where they had the red carpet premiere, and his family was actually there. You know, Brandon Lee is a 13-year-old, his wife and his daughter, they went to the premiere of this shit. Can you imagine the Lee family sitting there watching their father on screen like that? Come on, man. Anybody that was involved in that film should have went to jail. Point blank, period. Overall, this was a very informative doc that reminded me, like, yes, this was a thing that actually happened. There was a whole subgenre of films that were copycats of Bruce Lee. And honestly, some of them, it as bad as they are, some of them were actually pretty entertaining. And there are kung fu movies, right, where the fighting choreography destroys any Bruce Lee film. I'm sorry, like, I love Into the Dragon, but if you take Into the Dragon, right, and then you watch Five Deadly Venoms after that, even though they're totally completely different films, but still martial arts, come on, man, the choreography doesn't even compare. Or like the Shaolin Master Killer, or hell, a lot of Jackie Chan movies. But the problem with Jackie Chan movies also is that some films are too choreographed, where you can tell, okay, block, block, punch, punch, block, duck, punch, block, block, duck, You can tell it's like they're actually probably calling the shit out as they're doing it, where in Chinese Connection, Bruce is just straight up just swinging and knocking niggas out, man. So I think what Bruce Lee films does have over a lot of the other joints is the authenticity of, okay, this looks like an actual fight as opposed to being choreographed, but a lot of the choreographed stuff is very entertaining. So y'all, wrapping this up, this is a good watch if you're a Bruce Lee fan. You know, if you want to learn some history and just see how much of an icon that he is, Michael Jai White, I think that he's right. You know, so for the Chuck Norrises, the Charles Bronsons, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sly, you know what I'm saying? None of those guys had a whole, like, era of copycat films based off of them. where to keep them alive, they had to have other, because think about it, man, if Sly would have died after Rocky, do you think it would have been a Sly exploitation? You know what I'm saying? If Arnold would have died after the Terminator, would there have been an Arnold exploitation? I don't think so. It would have been a trend of copycats of those films, but I'm saying of that actual person. Like Bruce Lee was a character. He was different, man. Like the way he moved, the way he walked, his facial expressions. Like he was, and that's why black people gravitated towards him, man. Because Bruce Lee had swag, man. Bruce Lee could have passed for a nigga. I'm sorry, man. And from what I heard, he even hung around a lot of black people. You know what I'm saying? So the brothers could relate to Bruce, and Bruce could relate to the brothers. Especially being discriminated against in the 60s and the 70s, where in the 60s he couldn't get a leading role because he was an Asian. You know what I'm saying? And then he goes to Hong Kong and shows what he can do. Now America want to get on his dick. Ain't that about a bitch? Anyways, what's your favorite Bruce Lee film? Did you watch any of the Bruceploitation films? Comment freely below. Let me know what you think. Are you team Bruce Lee or team Jackie Chan, or do you just love both of them like I do? Honestly, I'm more team Bruce, because Jackie Chan just got so many movies I can't even keep up with him, man. And Bruce, just those 3 movies that he did, well, as an adult, because of course he was a child actor, but of the 4 films that he did, I don't count Game of Death, but the 4 films that he did, man, they're still iconic. I can still watch them to this day, and they're very memorable and still rewatchable. So that's it, and that's all. Boards don't hit back. Shout out to my man Bruce. So anyways, y'all, that's it and that's all. I'm out.